Well, it looks like the ESPN WWE deal for the PLEs is going to go into effect a lot sooner than I'm assuming a lot of us thought it would, because we all originally thought, when this deal was made, that it was going to officially begin with WrestleMania 42 next April. Well, that's not exactly the case right now, because something intriguing has occurred. Something intriguing has made itself known. You see, according to multiple outlets that are reliable, in the reporting, and somewhat reliable, here and there, basically it seems that WWE, according to some of the sources, like Brian Alvarez of Wrestling Observer, if you believe a word he says, and to an extent Meltzer, again, if you believe a word he says, but others have backed this up, like Fightful has backed it up, and other reliable sources have. But it seems that WWE, as of next weekend, would clash in Paris, basically, well, was it next week? Yeah, next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, with Clash in Paris, they would have met their current quota with Peacock. And what does that mean? Basically, it means, from a contractual standpoint, Peacock will no longer have to, unless they want to, no longer have to oblige to allowing WWE to air main roster PLE pay-per-view events on their service. I mean, the other PLEs, like NXT, if you will, that's fine, because that's going to go until March 2026. And as a matter of fact, according to some reports, and there's still going to be some reliable sources that can confirm it, but apparently Peacock and WWE made a deal to now have Saturday night's main event be a Peacock exclusive. In other words, it will not be on NBCU in the future. I don't know if that means that the final Saturday night main events will be on, Peacock only during the end of, in the final months of this year, or that's starting next year. We'll have to see. But that is one thing that's going on right now, that Peacock will still retain, the NXT PLEs. They will retain, potentially as an exclusive to them only, Saturday night's main event. They will get all that, if you will. They will get all that, as well as, for the time being, they will maintain control of the video library. That's right. The WWE channel on Peacock is still going to be very, I guess you could say, useful to an extent, because they will still have Saturday night's main event. They will still have the NXT PLEs. They will have the archival video library that's slowly migrating, inch by inch over to YouTube and the various YouTube channels. As well as they will have the replays of SmackDown, because SmackDown is on USA, and that's not going to go away anytime soon, because it's pretty much locked in until 2029. But as far as the main roster ones go, the main roster ones are pretty much done, because, as reported, the quota was made, or met, or will be met at the end of this month with Clash in Paris. Which means next month, a month from today, on September 20th, will be the inaugural start of the WWE ESPN PLE 5-year agreement, and it all begins with WrestlePalooza. That's right. We were always wondering what is going to be the pay-per-view that WWE was rumored, if not pretty much blatantly saying they were going to put onto the same day to counteract AEW All Out. Well, now we know. It's going to be an old ECW pay-per-view name from about 1998 and 1999 called WrestlePalooza. And it's going to take place at the Field House, formerly known as the Conseco Field House in Indianapolis. So that right there is when and where the deal, the new deal and agreement for PLEs between WWE and ESPN will begin. And like I said earlier, basically a lot of outlets, not just those like Fightful and all them, but WWE themselves, all across the social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, aka X, Blue Sky, you name it, even the official website, along with the Walt Disney Company's official website and ESPN by extension, all have come out and confirmed that starting next month, WWE's PLEs going forward will be on the ESPN new streaming app, formerly also known, I should say, as ESPN DTC, short for Direct to Consumer. So that's what's going on as far as what, the future of the PLEs are concerned. And this has really, gotten people talking because, again, a lot of people felt that the PLE deal would not go into effect till WrestleMania next year, but the reason it's going into effect now is due to the fact that because WWE has decided to make, WrestleMania and now SummerSlam two-night events, and then adding in events like Evolution, pretty much that helped them meet the quota with Peacock. Because Peacock, instead of looking at WrestleMania and SummerSlam as one event, they looked at both individual nights that they were on as two separate events. That's what they did. Instead of looking at the two-night SummerSlam as one event and the two-night WrestleMania as one event, they looked at it as two separate events each. Thus, by doing so, it allowed them to meet the quota that them and WWE agreed upon for the amount of PLEs Peacock would allow to be broadcast live, streamed live on their service. And I know some people hearing this, you're probably thinking the same thing I am, and I'm sure others are. I'm pretty sure you're thinking, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, they're two-night events, but they're just the same event just going on for 2 nights. It don't make sense. It should be looked at as one event. And I agree. It should be, but again, other outlets like Peacock, who was hosting the PLEs, the main roster PLEs, don't look at it in that way. ESPN, believe it or not, is very similar in that manner. They don't look at the they don't look at the two-night events of WrestleMania and SummerSlam and whatever two-night events, future two-night events they're going to do in the future. They're not going to look at them as individual one events only or singular events only just because they're spanning over 2 nights. No, they're going to look at them as two separate events. And thus, by doing so, that will allow them to meet the quota faster. And then we see what happens from there. But yeah, basically, long story short, the deal between ESPN and WWE that we thought was going to happen at WrestleMania 42, officially start there, is starting a month from today due to the fact that next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, that will be the final PLE on Peacock because basically that would have allowed them to meet their quota. It allowed them to meet their quota for the current agreement with Peacock. And again, Peacock, basically, they're still going to have WWE content. They're still going to have WWE content due to the fact that they just made a deal to keep Saturday Night's Main Event on Peacock and thus make it a Peacock exclusive, which means no more being seen on NBCU. And I'm assuming that's because it's college football season right now. And then, of course, the NBA is coming back on there. So I'm assuming that plays a factor. And also, they're going to be keeping Peacock, the NXT PLEs, until the current contract comes to an end in March of 2026, next year. And then on top of that, they're still keeping the video library, the archive video library, that's slowly migrating over to YouTube in the various channels there. And of course, because SmackDown is on USA, which is an NBCU Comcast network, the SmackDown replays will also remain on there till at least 2029. So there's still going to be plenty of WWE content for Saturday Night's Main Event for the foreseeable future. But as far as the main roster PLEs go, they're pretty much, done with them after next weekend. And again, like I said, I know some people listening to this, and they're like, that just doesn't make sense, because even if someone like WrestleMania and SummerSlam are 2-night events, they should be counted as one event. And again, I agree. I do agree to an extent that should be counted as one event, but that's not how, these streaming services, these companies like Peacock and ESPN or anybody else will look at it that way. They'll look at them as individual events and count those as part of the quota individually and not as one. So that's why this whole thing is happening a lot sooner than we expected on September 20th with WWE's WrestlePalooza, a tribute, if you will, in name to the ECW pay-per-view of the same name back in '98 called WrestlePalooza as well. So that's why this is happening. Now, as far as anybody is concerned when it comes to the VPNs, yeah, you can do the VPN route if you want to when it comes to what's going on here, and that's fine. But let me explain to you right now. I wouldn't be so dependent on the VPNs as, currently, okay? I would not be so dependent on them because, as I've said before, I truly believe it's only a matter of time before you have all these streaming outlets, all these cable outlets that have streaming as a part of their service, and the governments, believe it or not, they're going to crack down on VPNs. They're going to crack down on them because to them, you're basically, well, I'll put it this way, you're basically trying to get something for free, instead of paying for it. It's all about the dollar bill, guys. So when they start noticing that the subscriber count is going down, a lot of them are going to realize they're going to realize it has to do with people going on the VPN thing. And because of that, the VPNs will slowly start being I wouldn't say put to rest, but you'll start slowly seeing people talking about them and even encouraging people to use them because of the fact that they're going to be on watch. The government's going to be watching them. The streaming networks and platforms, the outlets that have streaming are going to be watching them because of the fact that they don't want anything interfering with them getting their dollar bill. Also, take into account that the president of ESPN, the one in charge of not just the entire ESPN division, but also in charge of having this DTC streaming service become reality, he has come out recently and said that they are contractually in negotiations, in his own words, contractually still working in negotiations to get all platforms to have ESPN DTC, direct-to-consumer, the new streaming platform, on their service. In other words, what that means, I'm trying to find the right words to say here. In other words, what that means is for anybody that has YouTube TV, yeah, you may not be happy that you have to pay for the ESPN DTC service separately, but according to what this guy is saying, this guy that runs the whole thing is saying, you won't probably have to worry about that much longer because contractually they're trying to work something out to where you could get the ESPN app, the new ESPN streaming app, for nothing if you have ESPN as part of your package. The same as Xfinity, Comcast users, if you will, and anybody else, AT&T, and so on. If you have ESPN right now, currently, you may have to do the $29.99, and I'm probably going to do that myself, but you probably won't have to worry about that, for too much longer because, again, according to what he's saying, they are trying to work out contractual agreements to get all the cable outlets and all the other, streaming TV, live TV outlets that carry ESPN as part of the packaging to allow the consumers to be able to log in to the new ESPN app, without issue and be able to benefit for free if you will, for pretty much nothing, like the people that have Verizon and Spectrum and DirecTV, basically it will allow them, basically for nothing, to be able to enjoy all the benefits that this new service has to offer. That is what he's got planned. That is what he's planning to do. He has said it. He has said it himself more so than anything as of late. So yeah, people like me, people like you that don't, that's not going to have that service readily available fully, when it comes out. Yeah, we may have to pay the $29.99 temporarily, but over time we won't have to worry about that because slowly it will be integrated into the cable bill, if you will, or slowly just, integrated period out of existence, and we could just have the service for free. I mean, Netflix has done it. I did it with Netflix. In fact, I did it with Netflix unexpectedly. I think they did it on their own. They just said, here, Netflix is now part of your thing. So yeah, there you go. I'm not even getting the Netflix bill anymore. How's that? I look at my bank statement, there's nothing that says Netflix. All because Netflix got integrated. Or I allowed it to be integrated. And that's probably what's going to happen here. The moment they make these contractual agreements official with YouTube TV, AT&T, Comcast, Xfinity, Cablevision, and all the other outlets that have ESPN as part of their packaging, but are not eligible yet to have, what Verizon and Spectrum and DirecTV are going to be, the customers there are going to be able to do. Basically what I think is going to happen is when that moment occurs, when they do get integrated, when a deal is made, contractually, that basically what's going to happen is we are going to be able to log in and slowly integrate our ESPN subscription into our provider, just like we've done with Netflix and any other ones, or any other services that we have the capability, that we have, done it with in the past. If you get what I'm saying. I know I sound like I'm rambling, but I'm trying to get to a point here. So basically, yeah, you can go, as I said earlier, yeah, you can go the VPN route all you want, but you got to be careful because I don't think VPNs are going to last much longer, and I don't think we'll have to worry about paying $29.99 or $299 a year or $29.99 a month. I don't think we'll have to worry about that for much longer. I think we might just have to deal with that for the first initial few months, but then afterwards, I've got a feeling before this year's out and going into next year, that's when, outlets like Comcast, YouTube TV, AT&T, Cablevision, and any other cable live TV outlet that has ESPN as part of their package, I think deals will be made, and you'll probably be able to integrate your ESPN DTC service into that, just like you've done with the services like Netflix and HBO Max and all that. Well, it's all under one roof, and you pretty much get it for nothing because it's part of the package now. Or it's because you have ESPN and you don't have to worry about spending that extra $30, $300, what have you. So I think right now we're going to be pretty much okay. And again, and look at it this way, if you do it monthly, $30 ain't going to hurt you, especially if you sign up for it at a time where hey, financially I can afford it, and I know financially I'll be able to pay for it at this time, at this time of the month. So I don't think $30 is going to hurt you whatsoever. I mean, let's be honest. Streaming is going to go up no matter what. Even if ESPN and Disney didn't have this new ESPN upgraded version of the app and everything on the table and ready to go, let's be honest. It wouldn't have mattered, it wouldn't have mattered if it was there or not, because streaming apps are going up. Who's to say in the future Disney Plus won't charge, the same amount that ESPN's going to be doing? Who's to say that's not going to happen? Who's to say HBO Max won't do that? Who's to say Paramount Plus won't do that? I'm just saying, guys. Just be patient. Don't worry too much. It's not going to hurt you, especially if you financially plan out correctly. And be patient. All right, just be patient. It's not going to hurt you. And like I said, before you know it, according to what this guy's saying, you won't have to worry about that any longer or much longer. But yeah, in closing, guys, it feels like, it feels like WWE might be greedy or might be too much in a rush and all that to, kind of put AEW into place. But that's not entirely the thing here. I mean, yeah, they would have put the show on at the same day as, AEW All Out. They would have done that, there's no doubt, to counter programming and also to get back at Tony Khan for everything he said and done, mostly said insultingly and all that to Triple H and Nick Khan, and again, as I said before, in another audio video, patience is everything. They were patient, and now they're like a snake. They're like a cobra. They're like a python. They're like, they are like a venomous. I'm trying to find another word for snake. Rattlesnake. A venomous rattlesnake, or venomous, cobra or stingray or whatever, just waiting, being patient, for the moment to pounce and strike. They're like a cat. They're like a cat stalking its prey, an unknowing bird. Like I saw this morning, some cats from our neighbor's area, from our neighbor's house, was walking across the fence, and they were stalking some birds. It's like that. They were just biding their time, sneaking slowly, up on that prey, getting ready to attack. That's what's going on with Tony Khan. That's what's going on right now. Whether we like it or not, Tony Khan is the prey, and Nick Khan and Triple H, along with TKO backing them up, they're the predators that have been patient and slowly biding this time and stalking Tony Khan, to get at him, to attack him, to poison him, to hurt him because of what he said about them and what he's done as well in the past. Basically, this is the ultimate. How do I put this? This is the ultimate, old school. Take the child to the bedroom, close the door, take the belt off, or get the wooden paddle, and bam! Right on the behind. Several times, if not multiple times, until they've learned their lesson. That's what it is. That's what this really is. It's Triple H and Nick Khan taking Tony Khan into a bedroom, closing the doors, grabbing the wooden paddle, or taking off the belt, and going bam, bam, bam on his rear end to teach him a lesson in humility, that if you're going to be in this business, keep your thoughts to yourself. Keep your thoughts to yourself. Yeah, Triple H said what he did, but guess what? Don't take it seriously, because that's Triple H. That's the WWE mentality. Don't take it seriously. Don't take it personally. Just show you're the bigger man. Show you're the better promoter, and that you are the alternative to WWE, and just go about your business. But he didn't do that, and now he's paying a price. He's in that position, as I described, of being taken to the woodshed and literally given a spanking, a whooping, by the wooden paddle and the belt that he's never going to forget, because of the fact that he just did not leave well enough alone and show he could be the bigger man. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. So, yeah, again, it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered if this was on, if this would have been on Peacock or, on free TV or whatever. It's all about getting back at Tony Khan. That's what this is. And ESPN, believe it or not, believe it or not, they are a bigger entity than Peacock when it comes to sports. People, let's look at it this way. People are going to pay the $29.99 a month or the $299 a year, not just because of WWE, but because all kinds of sports they're going to get. The NFL, the NHL, the NBA, the WNBA, you name it. They're going to have, MLB, if you will, college football, college baseball, college basketball, and whatever else, the PFL, MMA league, and so on. They're going to have basically a smorgasbord, ladies and gentlemen, a smorgasbord of content at their fingertips. They're going to have a smorgasbord of content at their fingertips. And all for a, believe it or not, juicy, affordable price of $30. And a lot of that content they're going to get is worth a lot. Is basically worth a lot more than $30 and a lot more than, $300 a year. What they're getting for $30 a month, if not $300 a year, that's a steal. That's a steal. So people are going to pay it, not just for WWE, they're going to pay it for all the other content they're going to get. You can't tell me that with this upcoming college football season, people aren't going to want to see all kinds of college games from different regions, because they're going to want to. And now they're going to get that opportunity more so than they ever have. More so than they ever have. So, in reality, ladies and gentlemen, whether we like it or not, people are going to do it, are going to pay that price of $29.99 a month or $299 a year, even if it's temporary, which it sounds like it's going to be, all because of the smorgasbord of content they're going to get. So at the end of the day, some of us may not like this. Some of us may be mad they should have waited till next year. Some of us are saying in anger, oh, we're going to go VPN, we're going to pirate and all that. Yeah, that's fine. But again, VPN and pirating, in my opinion, are only going to last for so long, because I've got a feeling, a strong feeling, that that's all going to be coming to an end. Because like I said, if you think these streaming platforms, when they're seeing a reduction, I should say, in viewership, and maybe even subscriber numbers, if you do not think that the first thing that comes to their mind is people are using VPNs, to watch this content on other streaming platforms, and it's causing them to lose money, you don't think they don't think that? First and foremost, of course they do. So you know what they're planning to do? So you know what they probably are going to plan to do? They're going to probably plan to get VPNs out of here. And it's not just going to be a U.S. thing. It's going to be all over the world. It's going to be an international thing. So enjoy those while you can, because they probably won't be lasting much longer. I mean, why do you think you don't hear much about NordVPN or ExpressVPN at all? Why do you think you don't hear about them? All because of the fact that pretty much I think they're realizing that the streaming company, these streaming platforms, these streaming services, along with the governments of the U.S. and all the other countries, they realize that they have their eyes on them now. That's why you don't hear people saying, oh, use my code to get 20% off ExpressVPN or 20% off of NordVPN. This is why you don't hear that anymore, because of things like that. So to me, like I said, just be patient, guys. Just be patient. Because if the president of ESPN coming out and saying, we are working contractually to make sure every cable outlet and every live TV outlet that has ESPN as part of the packaging, basically will allow the consumer of that service to also integrate for free the ESPN DTC app. If he's saying that they're working to make that happen, and hopefully a lot sooner than we expect, then I say let's be patient. It's not going to hurt, let's say, to lose individually, monthly, $30 a month, if you will. And if you can't pay it, then fine. They give you a time limit. And if you can't make that time limit, guess what? You just have to resubscribe. So what? So what? Okay? But it's not going to hurt losing $30, in August or September and October and November, okay, or even December. You know how much that is in just the span of the rest of this year? In the span of 4 months? Huh? August, September, that's $60 there. October, 90. November, 120, 150. 150 in the span of, 5 months, 4 months? I hate to sound like this, but that's chump change. That's chump change. A lot of us, from a work employment standpoint, make a lot more on our paychecks, even if they may not be much, than losing that combined. And part of our paycheck does go to that. But guess what? 150 in just a few months? I mean, come on. That's chump change compared to what we get weekly or bi-weekly from a check perspective. Okay? In closing, we have to look at it this way. Next year, by the end of this year, next year, I don't think any of us that have YouTube TV, AT&T, any of us that have Comcast Xfinity or Cablevision, the outlets that are not in the description of the outlets, the cable outlets like TV outlets that can be used to access the new service for free and get all the features for free. Just because none of those are listed right now doesn't mean by the end of the year or the beginning of next year that's not going to change, because it will. Because if this guy, and we got to give him, we got to give this guy a chance. We got to give this guy a chance, that he's basically doing what he says they're doing and making contractual deals and negotiations to make this happen. But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, it wouldn't have mattered what WWE would have put WrestlePalooza at. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered whether it was free TV or Peacock or even here on ESPN. Because of the fact that at the end of the day, whether it's going up against All Out, whether it would have been put up against All In, whether it have been put up against Full Gear, whether it have been put up against World's End, it wouldn't have mattered. Heck, it wouldn't have mattered if it got put up against freaking Dynamite. At the end of the day, it's about Triple H and Nick Khan and TKO taking Tony Khan into the back shed, whooping his butt, and teaching him a lesson in humility. And that humility being, don't take something that's said in jest. Don't take something that was done in jest so seriously. Prove you're the bigger man and that you are the true alternative to the WWE by putting on a better product. But yeah, again, it wouldn't have mattered when they would have done this or where it would have aired. It's all about that at the end of the day. And also, ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to matter to folks whether they're going to get. It's not going to matter whether or not they're going to get the service for WWE content only. No, people are going to get the service for a lot more. They're going to get it for that whole smorgasbord that's being advertised. And also, the guy has said that it's still going to be a work in progress. So it's not going to be perfect yet, or at least close to it, but it's going to improve. In other words, he is coming out and saying that there are some glitches, some kinks in the armor you might notice, but over time they're going to basically improve and work on it to make it better. Okay? So yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, people that are going to go out and subscribe to this for $29.99 a month or $299 a year, they're not just doing it for the WWE content, they're doing it for the whole smorgasbord of sports content and entertainment content that they're going to get. But that's just my take on it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are overall in the comment section, as well as during the live chat during the premiere if you haven't already. Do me a favor, guys. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the link at the bottom of the description to go to my Teespring store to find merchandise you can't get anywhere else, guys. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the whole thing. Let me know what yours are, and until then, I am out.